Sebastian Kane, one of the most talented scientists of our time, stares intently at the computer screen. The thought piercing his mind is inexorable. How can invisibility be reversed? A recent experiment has caused the gorilla to disappear from the visible spectrum. Now we need to bring it back, but calculations show that this is impossible. He is distracted from his musings by a chance glance through the window across the street. Having returned from work, the girl begins to prepare for a shower. She undresses, not suspecting that a man is watching her. But at the last moment she draws the curtains. Kane goes back to the computer, adjusts the formula, does the calculations, and gets a positive result. He immediately contacts Linda McKay, a colleague and former lover. Linda answers through a dream, but realizing that a breakthrough is involved, promises to come immediately. She disconnects the video link and turns to the man beside her. Matthew Kensington, another member of the research team, becomes her new partner. Their relationship remains a secret to the others. Soon the entire team is gathered in the lab.
Kensington goes to the invisible gorilla with a soporific Druck- and thermal imager.
The primate, weakened and irritated by his long stay in a state of invisibility, lunges at him. There is a scream, a flash of pain, and the scientist retreats with a wound. Kane comes to the rescue in time, and together they subdue the animal.
The main stage of the experiment begins.
The introduction of a new drug should reverse the process. The gorilla beats in agony. It screams, tearing the space of the laboratory. For a moment, it seems the experiment has failed. But the emergency measures work. In a few seconds, the animal breathes again. The gorilla becomes visible. There is jubilation in the laboratory. The scientists rejoice in their triumph, realizing the significance of their achievement. Later, as the team celebrates their success in a restaurant, Kane retreats to the balcony.
He gazes out into the darkness of the nighttime city.
Something seems to be troubling him. The next day, Dr. Sebastian Kane, Linda McKay, and Matthew Kensington go to a private meeting with the military officials overseeing the project. The report is presented by Kane himself. He lays out the gist of the case. Several primates have been successfully stripped of their invisibility, but attempts to bring them back to normal have failed. McKay and Kensington can't understand why he's lying. The military gives them more time to complete the project. Leaving the meeting, Sebastian shares his plan with his colleagues. He wants to make a major breakthrough. He wants to make people invisible. If the experiment is successful, their names will go down in the history of science, perhaps even being honored with a Nobel Prize. Linda and Matthew agree, confident of their success. Kane himself becomes a volunteer. He is secured on the experimental platform, and the painful and complex process of transformation begins.
Kane disappears in extreme physical pain.
But his body endures. He becomes completely invisible. Now Kane is isolated in a special box next to the experimental animals. He regains consciousness after 17 hours when Linda and Matthew visit him. A thermal imaging camera is installed in the room for 24-hour surveillance. The rest of the staff leave the lab, except for Sarah Kennedy, who has stayed on night duty. During the night, as Sarah was dozing at her post, a disturbing incident occurs. Kane, while remaining unseen, approached her and allowed himself to engage in unconventional behavior. Sarah woke up in a panic, not realizing what had happened. After that, the atmosphere in the team begins to deteriorate. Everyone becomes suspicious, tense, but for now they remain silent. From now on, everyone carries thermal imaging goggles. The day comes when Kane must become visible again. He is placed on a platform and injected with a reversal drug, but the procedure doesn't go as planned. As a result, his visibility does not return. Then they decide to put a substance on him that will make him visible, after which he sets to work, but nothing brings the desired result. Kane begins to become aggressive, irritable, and unpredictable.
On another night, Abby Carter remains on duty.
Kane decides to take a walk to bring his psychological state back to normal. Carter fails to stop Kane and immediately informs Linda. Together with Matthew, she sets out to find him. Linda went to Sebastian's apartment, where she found only his clothes and a mask, a sign that he had left the house unnoticed. Meanwhile, Kane, returning home, noticed his neighbor in the windows across the street, who, as before, was unaware that anyone was watching her. When the girl was about to take a shower, Kane, giving in to an animal impulse, went into her apartment. Taking advantage of the moment when she came out to see who was calling, he slipped inside unnoticed. He then attacked her. Meanwhile, back at the lab, the team was preparing to apprehend Kane. Heat goggles and a tranquilizer gun were prepared. But the precautions proved unnecessary. He returned on his own, explaining his disappearance with the need to unwind. The failure finally upsets Kane. He decides not to submit to any more restrictions. Replacing the circuit board in the surveillance camera with a recording of his dream, he leaves the lab again. This time his destination is Linda's apartment. Climbing the fire escape, he witnesses Linda spending the evening with Matthew. In a rage, he breaks the glass. Frightened, Linda calls the lab, but Frank Chase, on duty at the time, assures her that Sebastian is there and asleep. Back at the lab, Kane brutally kills an invisible dog that was a test subject. In the morning, the animal's body is found by Sarah. Kane claims he never got out of bed. A check of the security footage confirms this. Linda begins to suspect something, so she returns to the lab in the evening. She quickly discovers a corrupted circuit board in the surveillance system and rounds up the others. Linda declares that she intends to tell the project manager, Dr. Howard Kramer, everything.
Kane, bei en invisible, overheerse Konversation.
At night, Kane lures Kramer into the pool and kills him, thus stopping a possible leak of information. The next morning, Linda tries to call Kramer, but receives news of his death. He supposedly drowned. They can't leave the building either. The system blocks the elevator. The laboratory turns into a trap. The team arms themselves with heat goggles and tranquilizers. However, Kane is ahead of them. He begins the hunt. The first victim is Janice. After discovering her body, Matthew and Carter go in search of her. Kane hides in a ventilation shaft, seriously injures Carter and gets into a fight with Matthew. After the fight, Matthew loses consciousness, but is saved in time by Linda. Sarah and Frank go to Carter's aid. Sarah, finding him in serious condition, runs for blood. At that moment, she is overtaken by Kane and killed. Linda and Matthew find Frank at Carter's body. Together they search for Sarah, but Kane is already waiting for them. He kills Frank, severely wounds Matthew, and locks him and Linda in the cold room, setting the cooling level to maximum. While Kane prepares the explosives, Linda finds a way to escape the trap. She rescues Matthew and engages in a final battle with Kane. While she fights for her life, Matthew regains consciousness and comes to the rescue. Together, they immobilize Kane. Realizing that the lab is about to explode, they run to the elevator and escape via the emergency stairs. In the final battle, Linda and Matthew gain the upper hand and drop Kane into the center of the explosion. The lab is destroyed.
Bot escape and Lise lab alive.
If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe and like the channel.